Welcome to week 12 of Bible Studies for Life. We're continuing in this section of studies on sin, temptation, and battles with the devil and all of that. Excited about the passage because today we're in Ephesians 6, one of the great passages that Paul has written about how to deal with sin and what that's all like, the spiritual battles that take place. I'm sure you're going to love this one, loving to teach it as well. Be sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel, like the video. We love that when you do it. Comment. If you've got questions, answers, put those in there. Share it with other people. And then if you want to help support what we're doing, you can go to this website right here at give.exposedtochrist.com and support not only our teaching, but also the mission work that we're doing. As you're watching this one, I'm in Greece, sharing with refugees and talking with ministers and those over there. So really excited about that opportunity. Every year I get to go there. But anyway, we're going to dive into Ephesians chapter 6. So let's look at that right now. Finally, be strengthened by the Lord and by his vast strength. Put on the full armor of God so that you can stand against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this darkness, against evil, spiritual forces in the heavens. Paul has gone through a theological treatise in the first 3 chapters of Ephesians, and then in chapters 4 and 5 and beginning of 6, he's talked about how to live out this faith, whether it's within the church or it's in the family or it's at work. He's talked about that in marriage. He's talked about that, and now we're at this point where he says, finally, here's the last thing. You need to be strengthened by the Lord, by his vast strength. You have this great opportunity. The Lord, who has his power available to you, will strengthen you. So you need to be strengthened by him. And so then you need to put on the full armor of God so that you can stand against the schemes of the devil. This is the theme of this. Put on the full armor of God so that you can stand. This is the way a Christian involves themselves in spiritual warfare. You stand. You don't sit. You don't cower. You don't turn your back. You don't run away. You don't kneel down. You don't lay down. You stand against the schemes of the devil. And then he makes very clear who our struggle is against. And I think it's important that we recognize that our struggle is not against one another. He said it's not against flesh and blood. It's not against those people in the church. It's not against people outside the church. It's not against people who hate the church, people who work against the church. They are not our enemy. Our enemy is clearly the devil here, and the devil, who has been called Satan, the accuser, the tempter, the murderer, the liar, the serpent, the roaring lion, the one who has disguised himself as an angel of light, the god of this age. That's who we're at work against. That's who we're in battle against. And we need to keep that clear. And he describes this as Satan's power, the realm of his power here. He talks about rulers, authorities, cosmic powers of darkness against evil spiritual forces of the heaven. This is who we're at battle against. And it's really important that we remember that we understand it, that we appreciate it. Okay, there are a couple of things that I want to make sure we understand here. First is that our battle is not against people. Secondly, our battle is real. It is a real spiritual battle against a real being. Satan is a real being, and the powers that are under him are real powers, and this is who we are fighting against. He is real, and he is powerful, and I think that we need to recognize that he's a strong enemy that can only be resisted by people who are going to put on the armor, who are going to rely on the power of God. You're not going to just defeat Satan with greater self-will. It's not going to be enough. He's wise, he's subtle, he's experienced. He has been deceiving people since the beginning that people were on the earth, right? Let's go back to Adam and Eve. That temptation has been there from the beginning, right? He has been deceiving people longer than you or I have been figuring out what is true and discerning truth and reality. So he's better at that than we are. That's why we need the power of God at work within us. We are not helpless in this battle, but we must rely on the one who is our help and not on our own strength, our own ability, our own intelligence, our own self-will, right? And what does Satan do? Well, he deceives us. He doesn't fight fair. He wants to defeat you. He wants to separate. That's what I often say, that Satan's work mainly is to separate. He wants to separate you from God. He wants to separate you from one another. He wants to separate you from truth. He wants to separate you from your spouse. He wants to separate you from your family. He wants to separate parents from children and children from parents. He wants to separate people in the church from one another. His aim is to defeat the church. That's what he's trying to accomplish, okay? And this list of aligned forces just talks about this whole host of powers that are at work against the church and at work against Christians. And we need to realize that it is not people. It is this spiritual battlefield which we find ourselves in, but which we have great comfort. For we've won ultimate victory. We have the armor of God to do battle against. And here Paul begins to describe this armor. He says, for this reason, take up the full armor of God, so that you may be able to resist in the evil day, and having prepared everything, to take your stand. So stand, therefore, with truth like a belt around your waist, righteousness like armor on your chest. Okay, you take up the full armor of God so that you may be able to stand. Stand. This is the third time he's used that word, stand. This is what he calls us to do, to stand. And we put on this God's armor. And I love this thought about this, okay, if we can. I think often we think about this as the armor of God are things that God gives us, right? So that we can be prepared for the battle. So the armor of God is the armor owned by God. But I want you to think about it more this way. It's not the armor owned by God, it's the armor who is God. It's the armor of God. God is the armor. We put on the full armor of God, because I think when we look at every one of these things, what we see is not something that God has, but something that God is. It's who God is that he's giving us. And so it's not that I'm going to put on God's armor and God's going to stand over there and watch me. It's that I put God on. I fully envelop myself in who he is so that I can go into this spiritual battle. So we'll look at these pieces of that and thinking about that way, right? First, we have truth like a belt around your waist. Jesus said, I am the truth. We put on truth, right? This is who God is. God is the literal definition of truth. Remember when Pilate says to Jesus, what is truth? Well, Jesus is truth. He is truth. Now, he doesn't know the truth. He doesn't just speak the truth. He is the truth. That's who we put on. We put him on, truth. And just my little joke I usually make about this is truth is like a belt, because we need the belt to keep our pants up, because you don't want to get caught with your pants down, right? So you speak truth. If you lie, if you deceive, sooner or later you're going to get caught with your pants down. Okay. Then we have righteousness like armor on your chest. Righteousness. Well, what is righteousness? Righteousness is God. He gives us his righteousness, right? And that armor on our chest is what protects our heart. Protects our heart. Okay, then. He says, your feet sandaled with readiness for the gospel of peace. The feet sandaled with readiness for the gospel of peace. Well, this is God. God is the gospel of peace. Jesus is the gospel. Jesus is the good news, and Jesus is the one who brings us and gives us peace. By his mere presence, he is peace in our lives, right? So we're ready to go. We're wearing the gospel on our feet because we're going. The gospel is not meant to be in a place. It's not meant to be limited to one location. It's meant to be taken with us wherever we go, right? In every situation, take up the shield of faith. The shield of faith. We trust in him, the shield of faith. Where does that faith comes from? It comes from God. We hear and we have faith. We believe. We put our complete trust in him, right? With that, we extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one to let you know the evil one is attacking, right? And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. The helmet of salvation. Salvation comes from the Lord. He is our salvation. He is our salvation. He doesn't just give us salvation. He gives us himself. He is our salvation. And this is his word. We take this one weapon that we have is the sword of the Spirit. That's our only weapon that we have in this battle. We fully arm ourselves. We put on the full armor of who God is, right? And then we pray at all times. This is not the tagline. This is the summary of all of it, right? Pray at all times in the Spirit with every prayer and request, and stay alert with all perseverance and intercession for all the saints. Pray at all times with every prayer, with all perseverance for all the saints. These important words. It is all encompassing in our life to spend time in prayer with the Lord. If we're going to win in this battle, we've got to pray. You can't get there. You can't win if you don't pray. It just won't happen. Hey, this is great. There's tons here, right? We could spend hours talking about this passage, and I know you're going to have a lot to kind of condense down to figure out what you're going to talk about in your class, but thanks for doing it, for doing the work. Thanks for teaching. God bless you for that. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate that. Be sure and subscribe if you haven't. Like, comment, share it with others. We love it when you do that. We're over 1,000. We're headed onward. All right. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.